Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Framed Podcast. My name is Charlie, and this week we're going to be discussing all things Toy Story. But before we do get into that, make sure if you're new here, you're hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, and dropping some comments as well. If you're joining us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then make sure to hit the follow as well and drop us some ratings. It does help us more than you could possibly know. Yes, as I said, my name is Charlie, 1/3 of the Framed Podcast, and this week we're going to be diving into all things Toy Story 5. I had the lucky opportunity to see it just over a week ago now. I've been able to sit with my thoughts for a while, really collate them, and give you guys a proper breakdown of this film, what I thought of it, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. But before we get into that, it's time to talk about the summer of cinema. Summer of cinema is here. Toy Story is truly the kickoff to that. It is the biggest movie release, I think, of the summer so far. We've, of course, had things like Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day, which Ben spoke about last week. Before that, we had Master of the Universe and Scary Movie, but those just haven't done big swings at the box office. Toy Story is tracking to make $450 million in its opening weekend this weekend at time of recording. And that is insane. One of the biggest opening weekends of the year so far, probably one of the biggest of the decade for animation, and it's going to be incredible to see what it actually brings in, because often those tracking numbers are exceeded by people that walk into the cinemas and add to that total. But to get into things a little bit more Toy Story focused, I want you guys to go down below and comment what your favourite Toy Story movie is. And if you've seen 5, let's see if anyone can comment Toy Story 5. Toy Story 5 is a huge success. To get into it from the kickoff, they have done a phenomenal job. They don't lose sight of what Toy Story's always been about, growing up, purpose, friendship, identity, not forgetting who you are, and being unapologetically yourself, which they really explore nicely with Bonnie in this movie. But they also use the central focal point of tech to be able to present this in a really unique but also modern and timely way. I think everything they do with the digital toys and LilyPad is done in such a great way. They manage to show the dangers of tech and how it can be damaging for children and the impact it can have on our lives and the world as a whole. But they do it in a way that doesn't paint anyone as a villain. We don't leave it in a situation where tech is ruled out as the single bad. We don't rule it out as where toys are too old to be played with anymore, and they are just the problem. They do it in such a nice way that sends a really powerful message, and it should really resonate with parents, but also hopefully resonates with the children that are watching this film, just because of how neatly and well structured the dialogue is in this film all the way throughout. It's just, there's nothing I can say more than just they do it in a really great way, and it's a fantastic way to take this franchise forward. And Andrew Stanton has proven that, 3 was not the necessary conclusion to this franchise. It was a great send-off at that point. It was a great conclusion to that original trilogy of films. But there are so many more important stories to tell within the Toy Story franchise. Maybe that wasn't Toy Story 4. I don't think that was the best thing that they could have put out. This probably would have been a more important film to put out as a Toy Story 4, and then maybe we could have hung around for a bit of time and seen what we could have put out as a 5. But now that we have had a 4 and a 5, I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't get 6, 7, 8. Give me 10 Toy Stories. They are fun every single time. And speaking of fun, this is easily the funniest Toy Story movie. The comedy is off the chart. Conan O'Brien's new character, Smarty Pants, is potentially the funniest and most hilarious character in the Toy Story franchise. He consistently had some insane one-liners that had me laughing as a 21-year-old. And I will stand on this for as long as I'm making content. The best kids' films are the ones that adults can resonate with and rewatch again and again and again. And they did that with this one, because I will definitely be rewatching it, because I'm booked in again twice this weekend to go and see it. So they've done their job there in making a kids' film that resonates with everybody. But back to the comedy, I think Conan O'Brien is great. Buzz has some fantastic one-liners in this movie. He's got some really great stuff. Not even things where he speaks sometimes as well. There's a little bit towards the end where something happens with Jesse. I'm not going to spoil. But no, there's a really, really nice and very beautiful scene that kind of pays off to the last 4 Toy Story films. And it's a really funny moment with Buzz. Just being his classic, clueless self, doesn't really know how to handle certain situations. And it's played off really nice, and it's got this nice shtick about it that, really makes it stick as a powerful moment, but also an hilarious moment as well. We got our 3 new digital toys, which is, of course, Smarty Pants that I mentioned. You've got Atlas, the phone, and then you've got Snappy, the camera. They have a really, really great dynamic, and they work really well with 2 of our favourite characters, Jessie and Bullseye. And I think they have some fantastic chemistry, those 5 as a whole. All the stuff with Blaze in her house, I think that all works really well. the sort of play scenes that they do is really cool. And on the topic of those play scenes, I like that this time we've gone for a new animation style every time the toys are getting played with. It really spins them into a world that allows us to understand what the kid is envisioning. It's nice to see them introducing new animation styles and Pixar trying some new stuff. That's really cool to see. Of course, they've got their first hand-painted movie coming out at the end of the year with Gatto, of course, led by Mark Ruffalo. That's going to be really interesting to see, following on from this style that they've now kind of tested out a little bit in Toy Story. Obviously, Gatto's pushing that a bit further into a bit more high definition, but it's nice to see that explored in Toy Story and find ways to make this franchise feel new and fresh. In Toy Story 5, Jessie has taken over as our lead. She is the one looking out for Bonnie. She is now the sheriff. She's taken up the badge and the mantle from Woody at the end of Toy Story 4. She is without doubt the best written character in this film. She is phenomenal. And the way that we connect this all back to her story in Toy Story 2, whew, this very nearly got me from time to time. This has one of the most powerful third acts I think Pixar has put out in the last couple of years. It is, it sends a message straight home. It is impactful. I can't even look at the camera right now because I'm trying to collect all my thoughts on it. It was hard hitting. It was emotional. It was just beautiful, so well written. I mean, fans of Toy Story 2, which I know is renowned as one of the better Toy Stories and one of the fan favorites, was often the dark horse of the franchise that people didn't, love initially, but have grown to love it over time. It's nice to see now that there's a connection here in 5 that gives people another reason to go back, revisit Toy Story 2, look back on it again, and now have this sort of 20-year later epilogue and closure to this film, and it's incredible the way that they've done it. Like I said, a couple of decades on from that movie, and they're still finding ways to expand on it, make it even better, make that original story hit harder. All the stuff with Jesse and Emily, they handle it in a really nice way. There's a photograph that is found at the third act of this film, and that is the moment for me that almost got me, and it's that impactful, powerful moment where you really do see the impact that toys can have on a child's life and the impact that they can have. And I think it's probably one of the best displays of childhood and growing up in the Toy Story franchise and the ways in which a Toy Story from your childhood can shape your life. And this certainly shaped Emily's life and the future of, her family growing up. So it's nice to see them play on that theme, and, they connected to a scene earlier on in the film as well, which is really nice, and that adds, bookends to the film. You have this nice setup and the closure at the end. That's something that I always bang on about in films, and you'll hear me go on about in future episodes. If something has a bookend, I'm gonna love it. I love little payoffs. They're so simple, but they're also nuanced, and they just work, and they give you exactly what you want to feel, and that's exactly what the third act of this film gave me. It gave me exactly what I wanted to feel. I think one of my skepticisms with this film, that was a lot of other people's skepticism, was the return of Woody. Of course, he had his great send-off in Toy Story 4. We have that beautiful moment where he says to infinity, and Buzz says to infinity, and he says and beyond, and you feel like that's the final time they're going to meet. But of course, not being a cash grab, which blew my mind, he is back here and serves a very nice, important role. He doesn't overstay his welcome. He doesn't play into more scenes than he's needed to. He does his job. He does his work. He says his lines. He does his bits. And then, he heads off at the right time for him to head off. And I think they did it very well, because it was nice to see that dynamic between Buzz and Woody again. It's something we haven't seen on our screens for, what now, 6, 7 years? No meme intended. But it's great to see them back sharing the screen together. Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, iconic voice actors now for these roles. And, they're back on screen delivering stuff that is as great as when we first saw them back in 95. Of course, I wasn't born yet. But yeah, that's something that I grew up with, and it's been with me for my whole life. And to see them again now at the age I am now, and it just be as good as it was way back when, is fantastic. All the stuff with him being bald, having the poncho, the beer belly. The beer belly doesn't really make sense to me, but it's a funny thing. And as I said, this is one of the funniest Toy Story movies, and it is fun to watch. And Lily Pad just consistently roasting him, toys from the same century and Stuffalo Bill and things like that. Really, really good stuff. Those lines are in the trailer, so there's nothing spoiled there. I just think everything they do with Woody is really strong. I mean, he is the icon of the franchise. He is the person that's going to get people returning to the cinema to watch new installments. If they continue on to do 6 and 7, I'm sure Woody will be in there again. I don't think this is the last we've ever seen of him. We don't get a lot of him with like Bo and all the other toys that are looking for lost toys. Like Ducky and Bunny are in this film for like one shot. They don't speak, which I think is a shame because Key and Peele did a great job in the last movie of giving these characters great dynamics. It's a shame that they don't speak, not even have like one or two lines would have been fun. But yeah, I feel like those toys got wasted a little bit. Of course, Keanu Reeves comes back to voice Duke Kaboom again, which is really cool to see. But again, only got limited lines. It would have been nice to see that whole gang again, because they were for me probably the highlight of Toy Story 4. But Woody's back. He does his good stuff. He's got really funny lines. As I said, great chemistry with Buzz. He does some really good stuff with Lily, our villain, or villain, as we'll get into in a minute. They have some really nice scenes together, and there's some touching moments. There's the classic like Woody panicking about being replaced again scenes. Obviously, this time it's not his kid, but he's there to help them, and it's great to see that Woody is now able to process that a bit better, but also tackle it head on and not be afraid because of how many times he's had to overcome it in the past of the franchise. As I said, we will get onto our villain now, which is Lilypad for this installment of Toy Story. What a great character and what a great way to take this franchise. I mean, yeah, paint an iPad as a villain and see how that will react in a kids film. I think that's a very bold swing to make. It's a risky swing to make and one that could go disastrously wrong. But I think they smashed it. I mean, she is a very layered character by the end of the film. She has a lot of inner and self turmoil that she has to overcome. She begins the film with this insane ego, and we watch her slowly break that down as she builds a connection to the other toys and really understands what is right and wrong for Bonnie, and the times that she'll be needed as a toy, but the times that they'll be needed as a toy. And yeah, it's a very complex character who, in the trailers is promoted as this kind of like, I guess, your classic mustache twirling villain. Very two-dimensional, not a lot going on to them. But as we get into the film, she is a complex character. She's got a lot of things going on for her. There's a great like Siri joke in this film, where you really see her panic, and that's a really really good moment. I really did like that scene. There's a lot of creative things that they do with her character in terms of relatable things that we can all connect to with technology, and I think that's really fun because not only can the kids connect to it, the adults that are then taking their kids to see it, and the adults that are fans of the franchise like myself that are going back to see this new installment, they can connect with as well. And again, it just makes another relatable kids film, which is it's got to be the goal for these movies because while Pixar is trying to establish itself with a newer audience, they've still got to pay off to these people that have been with this franchise for the 3 decades that it's been running. And the greatest thing about this franchise sometimes has been its villains. You got Sid, Stinky Pete, you got Lotso, Gabby Gabby, who for me wasn't the best villain, but she is there and is she's a solid fit to the franchise. But I think Lilypad is up there in the top three for me. I think I prefer her to Sid. I think I prefer her to Gabby Gabby. She's a really good one and perfectly fits in this story. And yeah, as I said, she has a great arc and a great, self overcoming. Um, I can't remember who voice acts her, but yeah, whoever that voice actor is does a great job. There's a lot of like sarcastic lines. There's a lot of just robotic lines because she's technology, but you also got the ones where she's doing like Spanish and stuff. And the voice actor, credit to whoever it is. I should have done my research before this, but fantastic job. And again, voice cast across the board as Toy Story movies go. Very, very solid. Very, very good. There's not a character that feels out of place. There's not a voice that feels off. Everything is phenomenal. Um, Even things characters like Bonnie and her parents who have more screen time than usual, their voice actors are great. It's interesting to see that this is probably the Toy Story film where there is the most about humans and human connection. But I think in a film that is tackling themes of technology and how that's removing human interaction and people going outside from the world, this being the one where you're focusing on human connection feels right. It feels earned because obviously the shtick of like the first films was obviously you barely see Andy's mum. You don't really see her face apart from once. You barely see Andy unless you need to. It was very much the toys story, but this time around, I think the human connection and the human divide that is created through these iPads and these pieces of tech. Like we see Zoom calls happen in this. You've got like flip phones, like kiddie flip phones. You got obviously your iPhones, your iPads. There's scenes where you see all this technology in people's rooms and stuff, and you really watch the deconstruction of society and how that impacts humans, but then also how that directly affects the toys, and that is fantastic. There's a really really good scene towards the start with these sort of like collection of garden toys sort of saying to Jesse, like, don't you know what's happened? The age of toys is dead. Like, technology is here. It's not going anywhere. You know, you guys are about to come to the end of like your lifetime. And it kind of sets up this like scary thing for our lead toys. They don't really know where things are going to go. And at that time, Lilypad hasn't arrived, but like 2 seasons later, they do. She does, sorry. And yeah, that's when you watch everything crumble, and Jesse knows what is about to happen. And it's a great couple of scenes to watch happen. I've already touched on them at the start, but the trio of Digitoys with Conan O'Brien, Smarty Pants, who was like one of the funniest characters ever. You got Craig Robinson as Atlas, another great addition to the franchise. You've got Snappy, who is like a digital camera. She's really good. There's a lot of funny like battery jokes and connection jokes through these three characters. They've got some really good lines with Jessie and sort of mugging her off a little bit because she's just like an old school toy, and to them it's just kind of a waste of space until they understand each other and their different purposes in a child's life. But they have some really good scenes where they get played with. There's some really funny stuff when they're watching Jessie and Bullseye display to them what like play is. It's just it's a really good thing to give them this sort of this onset view, this sort of unintelligible view at the start of what it's like to have a connection with a toy, with a child, sorry, and how they maybe didn't have the best time with their kid at the beginning of their journey, but now in this new era they can go forward and have a great time with Blaze, who we meet, who's a really fun addition to the franchise as well. So there's some really good stuff with those three, and they're going to become fan favorites for sure. I've already seen multiple TikToks of people, hunting down these characters and wanting to get toy versions of them because they are really good additions to the franchise, and they will become instant fan favorites and classics of the franchise. Another really fun thing to focus on in this film is the army of buzzes. This is by far my highlight. I wanted to save it to the end because there's so much I can say about this. This could have been its own movie for me. I think the high tech sort of Wi-Fi connectable Buzz Lightyears thing is really really fun. It's a very unique thing for the franchise. This like crashed lorry full of lost toys, but they don't really understand that they're toys, and they're trying to get back to Star Command. There's like so many fun jokes that they make. I'm not going to go through all of them because I want you to go and watch it and have a great time with it. But it is genuinely one of the most unique but hilarious things that the Toy Story franchise has done. And if we do push forward with the Toy Story franchise into a sixth installment, which I hope we get to play off with that post-credit scene, which of course set up something to do with all those Buzz Lightyears, and maybe pull that into a further installment. There's some really good lines with like calling back to Toy Story 2, with Zurg being their dad. There's a really good line calling back to the first one, like this is falling with style, but we do a spin on that in this one. Really, really good to see again. It's those bookends that I talk about that I really enjoy. So it's nice to see them doing things like that again. I think, the last thing that I want to just home in on with Toy Story is that this is an incredible success for Pixar. It's another one of their beautiful pieces of animation. You've, of course, got the classic Toy Story art style mixed in with some of these hand painted scenes whenever kids are playing with the toys. You're dealing with an insanely timely theme that is important for kids, also parents watching, but also non-parents like myself watching. It's just a very well written reminder about the dangers of technology, the importance of human connection, how we can't lose this, we can't like succumb to this deconstruction of society just because we're leaning too much into technology. Human connection is truly where the strongest bonds are made. It's where friendships are made. It is where the greatest connections you'll find in your life are made, and it's something that can't be found through clicking through a screen. You've got to go out there and make these connections for yourself, and then sending this message to children at a time when we feel like we're at a turning point where tech is about to take over, especially with the introduction of AI. It's a really bold thing for them to tackle. It's a brave thing for them to tackle, but they do it in such a way where they don't paint anything as a villain. It has a really nice closure, such a powerful powerhouse, impactful third act, literally through a photograph that sent the audience into shock and this level of emotion that I haven't felt with a Pixar film in, I'd say, about the last 15 years. I do genuinely believe this is the best Pixar film in about 15 years. It's probably on par with things like Coco and Soul, which are the clear standouts of the last few years. And they've done such a phenomenal job. Hats off to the entire animation team of Pixar. Hats off to Andrew Stanton for coming back into Pixar and taking on this project, saying that he didn't want anyone to mess this up. He knew this story had to be told in the correct way, and I think he did. Hats off to the voice cast who do a fantastic bit of work all the way throughout. And my final thing is Toy Story 5 is definitely a top 10 movie that you will see this year so far. Get out there, get watching it, relive your childhood, become a kid again, have the funniest time that you've ever had with a Pixar movie, and get back into the joys of animated cinema and enjoy the lovable franchise that is Pixar. But that is all from me today on the Framed podcast, talking all things Toy Story. Remember, as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and also do drop us a follow and give us some ratings if you are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure to head over and follow our socials as well on Instagram, TikTok. I have been Charlie. Next week, going to be joined by Craig, who's going to be talking to you about House of the Dragon. And then I'm sure Ben will come back on and discuss Supergirl with you guys. But thank you for joining me. We will see you guys in the next one. Appreciate you all. Goodbye.